Future work for this, I've got to put fiber optics all throughout the walls. I've started drilling a few holes on some of them, but all the fiber optics you saw on the bottom, that kind of density is what I'm going for on the sides, and they are there if you look in Empire at some of those shots. Up here, I showed off that this has a power connection all set for it. So once this is ready, this will get its fiber optics. It's a really horrible paint job, but it looks kind of cool at the same time, in a fractal sort of way. These are the springs that I use. They're really stable with some CA. They're really stable with super glue and baking powder. So essentially, as you add wires, simply open up the spring and clamp it down. It's really great. It does get to be a mess though that you got to keep track of. And using different color wires everywhere made that even more difficult for this. There's about half more fiber optics to put in here. I want to do some timing chips to get some different blink rates on banks of light and fiber optic those all throughout. The hallway here and the landing bay have to be matched up somehow. I'll probably do a fake wall on this side because you can see directly through here. However, down here this doesn't line up at all. So this is going to need its own kind of thing. Plus there will of course be lights going in this area as well. Fiber optics, you can see a couple of the holes I drilled there already. Looks like they may be a little too big. Then all the power, what I'm going to do is run it down through one of these landing bays, down the feet, and onto the pads of the feet, and onto the pads of the landing feet. So that way I can pick this model up, I can put it on a Death Star diorama, Docking Bay 94 diorama. It's going to be sweet. And to turn the model on and off, you would simply put it in its place when it's on and move it just to the side when it's off. Nice and simple. I'm looking forward to completing this one, and maybe I can do it by February. If not, we'll see how it goes. It's pretty close. The painting is going to take a while alone. I'm probably about halfway there on all the LEDs and electronics, not counting the top half, which should go relatively simple with fiber optics and 3 or 4 LEDs at most. One last thing you may note if you're doing the cutaway is that this area is very different. What I've actually done is, if you put the roof onto the cutaway normally, what you will get is that wall piece in the way. So what I've done is to cut the wall and move it so that it's just out of the way. What did I do? I took off some of the wall from here and transplanted it into here. That's really about the best angle I can get on that. I put a lot of sprue all over the side connections to make it as strong as possible, and essentially just patched it in. And I think that's pretty much where this is at. There's a lot of minor pieces that are boxed away, of course, but the body is the real work here that's going on. I can see that I've improved a lot in the last few years. One thing I wouldn't do nowadays is run each individual wire the entire length. More likely what I'd do is start off with this central base here and run 2 single lines, one for each polarity all the way down. Just kind of rip the rubber at each point where each of these LEDs would feed into the main line. leave the chaos and threading to the fiber optics. There's a few LEDs here that I gotta still wire in. It looks like this one may have died, so I cut it out. Originally I was going to light this up with CCFL tubes. You can see that the inside is painted kind of a foggy white, but over here it's bare black. This is where the CCFL power supply used to be glued to. Once it died, there was no point in having it, and I really needed the space for everything that goes underneath here, which is a mess all its own. But it keeps things modular. So to fit those CCFLs in here, I cut off the ends and made them as small as possible, and one just wasn't bright enough, so I really needed two. And they just barely fit from here over to here at the very, very possible tightest, and even then they were a little twisted and taut. Once the inverter died, I gave up on that idea as a waste of time. But what I'll be doing is this. Modeler's brand double density LED tape. Only Modeler's brand has 3 LEDs per inch, and this is perfect for the Falcon. But unlike that finished model where I'm just going to tape this to the back of the engine grating, like this piece here, I'm not going to do that for this one. In this case, the lights are going to go inside the body. Let me set up the tripod.